This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. Brittany is away. We begin with the weather tonight and another soggy day for many of us in the province. Well, after more rain and thunderstorms this morning, floodwaters are finally starting to recede in southeastern Manitoba. That has residents and business owners kicking the cleanup into high gear. CBC's Mike Arsenault has more.
People in the RM of Hanover are cleaning up the mess left behind by heavy rainfalls. Almost 20,000 people live in this area, and today they're mopping up.
Coming in from pretty much all sides.
The water in Valerie Rosenall's basement is gone, but the cleanup has just started. Tuesday morning, she noticed the rainwater on her street was rising, and it started coming up through her sump pit.
I would say seven inches of water in the basement, so everything was covered. It took, like I said, maybe 10 minutes to rise up to that point, and then there was nothing stopping it.
In Mitchell and other areas in the RM of Hanover, the streets turned into rivers. Rosenall says after the basement flooded, service crews came to her house to empty tanks and drain water from the basement.
Right now we've got a restoration crew that is completing just the overall task of pulling any leftover water and drying things up and cleaning.
Outside of Mitchell near Kleefeld, Wayne Pretty is on an island. Everywhere he looks, he's surrounded by water. He's hoping it doesn't get any higher.
My crawl space has about 3.5 feet of water down there. So my pump has to be shut off, but we're watching it just in case it hits the joists, then we have to leave.
The RM of Hanover says it got as much as 200 millimeters of water in different parts of the area over the last 2 days. Officials say they've received hundreds of calls.
So we're still dealing with some road washouts and some new ones that are coming up. But at this point, we're sitting around just shy of 50 road washouts that we currently have.
Inside Steinbach on Tuesday, people were driving through what looked like a lake. The mayor doesn't know how many homes and businesses have flood damage, but he's telling residents to contact their insurance companies. He hopes the province can help with disaster relief. Now, water levels do appear to be going down in the area, but officials are concerned because there is more rain in the forecast. Mike Arsenault, CBC News, in the RM of Hanover.
A $900 million plan to mine and process sand in Manitoba is a little less grainy today. Canadian Premium Sand says the federal and provincial governments intend to cover almost a third of the costs. But as the CBC's Bartley Kivas reports, the company has a lot of work to do first.
Silica sand is in high demand for making solar panels. The quality of the sand in Manitoba is very high. Canadian Premium Sand, a Calgary company, wants to mine it from the east shore of Lake Winnipeg and process it into solar glass. The plant would be built in Selkirk. The sand itself would come from a quarry at Hollowater First Nation. The project received environmental approvals back in February. It'll take $880 million to get it off the ground. Glenn Leroux, CEO of Canadian Premium Sand, says the federal and provincial governments have signed letters of intent to contribute $272 million.
When these levels of government, offer this type of support, it is always going to be conditional. And the key condition on any of this is that we raise the rest of the money. We make this a real project, and then the funds will be unlocked.
Leroux says Ottawa is coming to the table with $100 million worth of grants and up to $100 million in loan guarantees for First Nations that invest in the project. The province's share of the funding would be $72 million. That would include money for a new paved road from Provincial Highway 304 to Hollowater First Nation. Jamie Moses is Manitoba's Economic Development Minister.
This would be a significant project for North America, and we're excited that it's going to be here in Manitoba.
Canadian Premium Sand says the project will create jobs for Hollowater First Nation. The city of Selkirk says it would be its biggest investment in 110 years. Leroux is also touting the strategic benefits of mining and processing glass for solar panels right here.
There isn't any of this glass made in North America. None. All of the glass for solar panels right now comes from China or Chinese-controlled Asia-Pacific countries.
But the project has opponents. The Wilderness Committee of Canada calls the funding announcement premature, noting Canadian Premium Sand still has to satisfy the conditions of its environmental license. Bartley Kivas, CBC News, Winnipeg.
The chair of the Manitoba NDP caucus says Mark Wasyliw's connection to Peter Nygaard's lawyer contributed to his dismissal from caucus, But it wasn't the only reason. Mike Moyes alleged his former colleague should not be working as both a lawyer and as an MLA. For more, we're joined by the CBC's Ian Fraze in the newsroom for us this evening. Ian, what did Moyes have to say?
Well, the NDP's caucus chair says he wasn't interested in mudslinging, yet he described Wasyliw as being deceitful and disrespectful. Mike Moyes says over the past year, caucus leadership worked with Wasyliw, encouraging him to be a team player and a role model for younger MLAs, but he alleges Wasyliw wouldn't do the work.
I had a lot of hope for Mr. Wasyliw, that he would willingly give up his practice, that he would become a good team member. There was numerous incidents that took place, and each and every time that we came to a decision as a caucus, with caucus leadership, we were hopeful that we could move forward. And unfortunately, it got to the point where we realized this was not improving.
Moyes wouldn't elaborate on these alleged incidents. The NDP initially said a few days back that Wasyliw was turfed because a colleague at the law firm where he worked is defending Peter Nygaard, a convicted sex offender. Moyes said today that issue was the final straw.
Caucus leadership, with myself as chair, leading the process, met with Mark repeatedly to discuss our concerns. We offered a clear path forward: leave your law practice or leave caucus. He made his choice.
So, Ian, Mark Wasyliw has been outspoken since his dismissal. He's accused the Premier of being a bully and leading a toxic government. How did Wasyliw respond to these latest allegations?
Well, he simply said that the comments from Moyes aren't true, and his dismissal was never because of caucus.
This is the work of Mike Moyes and Wab Kinew. It'd be very easy to prove me wrong. Pull out the other 34 MLAs and they can stand behind a mic with Wab and say, yeah, we agree that he should have gone. They will not be able to do that. There was no consensus.
Wasyliw added he thinks the government is running scared because this issue hasn't gone away. Riley.
Is the CBC's Ian Fraze reporting from the newsroom for us this evening. Well, let's stay with this story now. And just one day after being booted from NDP caucus, MLA Mark Wasyliw was in court defending a Winnipeg police officer who was accused of impaired driving. The CBC's Kristen Annabelle has that story.
MLA Mark Wasyliw was in court Tuesday, acting as the lawyer for a police officer. This came the day after Wasyliw was booted from his caucus because his colleague is defending Peter Nygaard, the former fashion tycoon convicted of sexually assaulting women. Wasyliw's client was Robin Kipling, a police officer charged with impaired driving in 2021 after his motorcycle crashed. No one else was hurt in the accident. Kipling pleaded not guilty to the charge. Wasyliw has been the officer's lawyer since at least this summer. Today, the NDP's caucus chair was asked how he felt about Wasyliw representing a police officer.
I think that this just highlights some of the issues with Mark's law practice, and that was why a choice was put to Mark. And he chose to remain a practicing lawyer.
A law expert says the case could have been an issue for the government if Wasyliw wasn't turfed from the party.
I would have a lot of concerns about an MLA in the governing party representing, in this case, a Winnipeg police officer. There would be issues around, again, is this person putting their political interests ahead of the interests of their client? Do they want to avoid embarrassing the government?
When asked about defending the officer on Tuesday, Wasyliw said that everyone deserves a defense, and his work as a lawyer is always done in his free time. Kristen Annabelle, CBC News, Winnipeg.
A South Central Manitoba First Nations Child Welfare Agency is suing its former executive director. It is alleging he fraudulently enriched himself at the agency's expense, leaving it out more than $10 million. Richard Delarond was Sandy Bay Child and Family Services Executive Director until 2021. That is when financial irregularities were discovered. The agency's new executive director says she hopes the lawsuit will help rebuild trust in the Child Welfare Agency.
Our community members are still very upset about all of this. There's a lot of rumors and a lot of talk about it still because it's been sitting for a little while. They're led to believe that he's gotten away with this.
No statements of defense have been filed yet, and none of the allegations in the lawsuit have been proven in court. A 38-year-old Winnipeg man has been charged after police say they found $300,000 worth of stolen items in a West Alexander neighborhood. Police say they spotted a stolen F-350 pickup truck in a compound in the 200 block of Tecumseh on September 7th. After getting a search warrant for that compound, police say they discovered several pickup trucks there, as well as all-terrain vehicles, motorcycles, and tow trucks. They also say license plates and personal ID were found. Police say the stolen goods had been taken from Winnipeg and the surrounding area between July of last year and early September of this year.
Was an investigation that determined that the person involved was the person renting the facility from a registered owner or from an owner that was not aware that this criminal activity was occurring within that property. The suspect that was identified resided on the property and stored all these items on the property as well.
Police say the stolen items have been returned to their owners. Investigators say they don't believe the man arrested acted alone and say that more arrests are expected. Well, it's time for a first check on our forecast now and have a look at some of this video from around Winnipeg this morning. We had a fog advisory in effect first thing. Visibility was down to 1 kilometer or less this morning across much of the province. It quickly cleared. A little more rain today. Ethan Williams is in for our forecast tonight.
Well, thanks, Riley. And yeah, the fog nicely clearing through the day today in southern Manitoba, but we are still watching showers and have been watching showers all day that have been moving through much of the south of the province, including in Winnipeg. And now the possibility of some severe thunderstorms popping up through the evening hours in the southwest. Totals have been fairly significant through the day just today, and especially in south central and southwestern Manitoba. A highest report has been just west of Portage. We had nearly 40 millimeters of rain. Thankfully, the heaviest rain not impacting, Steinbach and those areas that saw flooding in the past couple of days, but they definitely got rain as well. For tomorrow in Winnipeg, we're waking up to sun and cloud and 18, but there might be more rain on the way for us because thunderstorms are possible by the noon hour. Winds will pick up a little bit into the afternoon. We'll get to around 20 degrees. I think by later afternoon hours, Riley, will be the best chance for showers. I'll have the breakdown in your full forecast coming up.
All right. Thank you so much, Ethan. Still ahead tonight, thousands of teens gathered in Winnipeg for an event kicking off Truth and Reconciliation Week. We will take you to that event coming up after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Thousands of teens gathered today at Canada Life Centre in Winnipeg for an educational event kicking off Truth and Reconciliation Week. Students from grades 8 through 12 showed up for the Good Life Youth Empowerment Gathering. It was hosted by the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation. And as CBC's Arturo Chang reports, organizers hope the event starts a dialogue among youth about residential schools and the path toward reconciliation.
The atmosphere in this arena is electric, with tons of musical performance and dances, but this is also a place for learning. As thousands of Manitoba students hear the histories of pride and resilience of residential school survivors.
Many of us have had a hard life, and it was because of the decisions that we made as a result of our trauma. We don't want the youth to go through what we did.
About 6,000 teens came to the Canada Life Centre to hear the testimonies of elders and residential school survivors as Truth and Reconciliation Week gets underway.
I want to hear a noise that is going to make the rafters in this place shake. Because you're allowed to. There was a time in our life when we weren't even allowed.
Several Indigenous artists took to the stage to perform. There was dancing, a fashion show.
Hello.
And even some words from the Premier.
I always think about my dad. And I used to think about his brothers and sisters being in a residential school. If they would have ever imagined the opportunities that somebody like me has today.
You have to take care of yourself first.
Lavinia Brown went to residential school in Nunavut. She says all survivors have gone through a lot, but that she wanted to share with students a message of hope.
And they have a great opportunity to learn, and they have choices to be what they want to be, and to learn from the elders that we survived, so can you.
Arturo Chang, CBC News, Winnipeg.
15 Winnipeg families have new homes in Transcona. Habitat for Humanity Manitoba handed over keys to people moving into the Pandora Avenue West development. For one woman, she says the house is more than just a roof over her head. CBC's Zabina Ahmed reports.
Rosemary Ellis and her children got keys to the new home. Her family is one of 15 moving into the Pandora Avenue West development in Transcona. She gets the house in 8 weeks.
It's amazing, especially walking through the homes that are already done and just knowing that it will be ours, it will be mine to hand down to my children at some point.
Ellis is part of Habitat for Humanity's home ownership program. Families pay an affordable mortgage with no down payment. Investments come through government, corporate sponsors, and donors. Jamie Hall is the CEO of Habitat Manitoba.
Where they'll now have a safe and decent place to rest their heads, gather with friends, and create lasting memories.
The province says it's invested over $13 million in the program since 2001. Minister of Housing, Addictions and Homelessness, Bernadette Smith, says it's helped build 270 affordable houses.
I remember when I first started working on my own mortgage, and I'm less than 3 years away from owning my own mortgage. I grew up in social housing. I raised my own kids for a little bit of time in social housing. So I know the struggle that it took to get to where you are.
Habitat Manitoba says 40 more families will get new homes in 2026. Zabina Ahmed, CBC News, Winnipeg.
People looking to access medical care after normal business hours now have a new option. The province has opened its first extended hours primary care clinic. That clinic is located at the Access Winnipeg West Clinic at Grace Hospital. It will be open from 5:30 until 11:30 p.m. during the week, 1:30 until 11:30 on weekends, as well as special hours during holidays. Patients can register online for same-day appointments, and some walk-ins will also be seen. A major retail chain is requiring employees at 4 stores, 2 in Saskatoon and 2 in Calgary, to wear body cams to help combat violence. Loblaw says it is trying to protect workers and customers, but as Helena Mahalik reports, the pilot program is getting mixed reaction.
Here at Superstore in the Confederation neighborhood, security is being taken up a notch. People shopping are now being watched through body cameras worn by some employees.
Our mission is to use technology to reduce violence and to keep everybody safe.
In an online video, both the company behind the body cams and Loblaw's executives talk about the alarming rate of violence in their stores. Loblaw says they're piloting body cams to make people more safe.
Must mean there's a lot of shoplifting.
However, some customers don't seem so sure it's necessary.
I don't know if this one is going to make any impact on shoplifting, all that things.
Going backwards instead of forward in our life, because I think this is crazy. We have to lock everything, show ID.
This is part of a 3-month pilot program Loblaws is testing at the Confederation Superstore and the Shoppers Drug Mart on 22nd Street. Certain stores in Calgary are also taking part in the pilot program.
If we're getting positive feedback from police and now maybe possibly retail, you're going to see cameras expand across many industries, which is, again, just kind of a more surveillance society. Whether that people want that, it's a different conversation, but we're heading in that direction.
Other shoppers say this increase of security will help them feel safer, both in the store and around the neighborhood.
I'm a relative newcomer to this area, and it is really sketchy. So, yes, anything they can do to improve security. Like, there's just the things you see around here. Yeah.
Always we come with my family, with my kids. They're playing around this area, so I can say it's good here.
Some experts say this could help provide better evidence to police when dealing with assaults or theft, and even prevent theft altogether. Helena Mahalik, CBC News, Saskatoon.
Well, after all of that rain that we saw here in Winnipeg and through parts of Westman through this morning, we did see a little bit of sun through the afternoon hours today. Ethan Williams is tracking a bit more rain in our forecast, though.
Well, Riley, despite the rain today through the province, we actually managed to get up to some pretty warm temperatures, mid-20s through parts of southern Manitoba, even into the north, well above seasonal for this time of year. And it's this warm and clearing conditions and clear skies through the southwest that's bringing that threat of a little more severe weather tonight. We still have this area of low pressure over southern Saskatchewan. That'll continue to trigger off those cells through southern Manitoba tonight before things start to clear a little bit as we head into tomorrow morning. But then as we get through to the early afternoon, even though we're starting to see some clearing through the south and through Winnipeg, there remains the chance that we could see a few cells popping up here and there. You'll notice much of northern Manitoba still mostly cloudy, and the rain from this low pressure system will continue moving there, likely through these next couple of days here. Even tomorrow evening, a few spotty showers in the Red River Valley, not to be ruled out. And then finally by Friday, this small area of high pressure begins to move in, and that'll give us more substantial clearing. Still some heavier showers in the far north, and look out because I think there's more rain as we head into the weekend. Rainfall totals not going to be anywhere near dramatic as they were earlier in the week for us, but we still could see pockets of maybe 5 to 10 millimeters in eastern sections of the province, and into the north, kind of in northern sections of the Interlake, I think is where we might see another 10 to 20 millimeters in there. So something we'll be keeping an eye on in that part of the province. A little bit gusty at times tonight and tomorrow. Nothing too significant, but I think probably as this low continues to move through, we're still looking at those gusts in the range of 40 to 50 kilometers an hour. High pressure moving in on Friday, though, will die those winds down nicely. Taking a look, or a peek anyway, at your 7-day forecast, showing that we're going to be sitting around, well, just actually a little bit above seasonal for tomorrow. Again, a little bit breezy with the possibility of some storms Friday, we clear out nicely. We're looking for temperatures in the low 20s again. Still a little bit breezy in the morning. I think those winds will calm down a bit into the afternoon. Saturday is when we have that chance of showers once again, especially into the afternoon. And I think the further west you are, Brandon, Dauphin areas into the Westman and the Parklands is where we may see a little bit more rain. I'll have a look at tonight and tomorrow's full forecast, Riley, coming up.
All right, thanks so much, Ethan. Coming up, Pierre Poilievre's hopes of bringing down the Liberal government appear to have been dashed, at least for now. At least one party says it will vote against a planned motion of non-confidence in the House of Commons next week. The latest when we come back. To Ottawa now, where opposition leader Pierre Poilievre has been calling on other parties to support a non-confidence vote to topple the Liberal government, but that is proving difficult. Rafi Boudjikanian has more on that and about a prominent Liberal minister's plan to leave cabinet.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre taunting other opposition parties over support for Prime Minister Trudeau's Liberals.
Why won't the NDP stand up when it counts so that we can end this costly coalition?
Adapting his message for Quebec, where the Bloc Québécois is a major player.
Le Bloc va voter pour garder au pouvoir.
The Bloc is going to keep the costliest and most centralizing Prime Minister in history in power, he said.
We see that the leader of the opposition enjoys his political games, enjoys chasing after his own political interests.
At issue, this Conservative motion the House will vote on next week. The House has no confidence in the Prime Minister and the government. Poilievre trying to isolate the Liberals after the NDP recently left a formal confidence and supply agreement with the government and a by-election loss for the Liberals in a traditional Liberal stronghold in Montreal.
Donc la réponse, c'est non.
The Bloc says it won't side with the Conservatives, but wants concessions from Trudeau in return. All this while the Prime Minister is also dealing with another loss. A key cabinet minister and organizer in Quebec, Pablo Rodriguez, is leaving those functions to run for leadership of that province's Liberal Party.
Obviously, he leaves a hole. He's a very important member of our cabinet and our caucus, but there is a lot of other MPs and ministers that stay behind and will keep fighting for the interests of Quebecers and Canadians.
Their fight may come sooner than they'd like. The NDP won't say how it intends to vote on the Conservatives' confidence motion. To survive, the Liberals only need the support of a single opposition party. But as of now, the next general election is just over a year away, and there is no telling how the government will manage that balancing act over the next several months. Rafi Bujikani on CBC News, Ottawa.
Also on Parliament Hill, a Manitoba leader was remembered in the House of Commons.
There is an agreement to observe a moment of silence in memory of Kathy Merrick.
A moment of silence was held for the late Grand Chief of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs. Kathy Merrick died unexpectedly earlier this month. Merrick was the first woman to lead the AMC after serving as a band councillor and later as chief of Pimicikamak Cree Nation. Overseas, Lebanon's health ministry says 14 people are dead and hundreds more wounded in what appears to be a second wave of exploding devices in as many days. The attacks destroyed walkie-talkies, pagers, and other electronic equipment used by Hezbollah. The militant group has blamed Israel for the attacks. Chris Brown has the details and a warning. Some of the video in this story may be disturbing.
For the second day, panic spread across Lebanon as more electronic devices suddenly transformed into bombs. There were explosions inside stores and buildings, even at the funerals of those killed in Tuesday's blasts. Tuesday, it was thousands of pagers that blew up, causing catastrophic injuries. Wednesday, it was hundreds of handheld radios that detonated. The death toll on Tuesday alone was 12 people, Hezbollah acknowledging 6 of them were fighters. Lebanese authorities say 2 were children, including 9-year-old Fatima Abdallah. She was studying in the kitchen, said her aunt, and heard the pager sound. She went to check it, and it exploded. We spoke to analyst David Wood in Beirut just as the second round of explosions were going off.
The indiscriminate nature of target identification and location of those devices has really shocked people in Lebanon across the board.
While the Iranian-backed militant group Hezbollah blamed Israel, there's no official claim of responsibility. Nonetheless, some Israelis express pride in the apparent operation.
It was a great thing, I think, very clever, very focused.
Israel's cabinet has expanded its goals in the war against Hamas to include the return of Israeli residents to northern border communities Hezbollah has been shelling. On a visit with troops, the defense minister said the war is entering a new phase and shifting north. Hezbollah has said when Israel's attacks on Gaza end, it will stop as well. But for the Middle East's most powerful militia, having its communications utterly compromised is a major tactical setback.
I think Hezbollah has withstood very severe attacks in the past, and it's not necessarily going to demoralize its supporters.
Hezbollah has vowed to retaliate militarily, but how remains to be seen, as its leaders have repeatedly said they want to avoid a major war with Israel. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
A 46-year-old woman in Halifax is applying to end her life using medical assistance in dying, also known as MAID. Her decision follows years of fighting with Nova Scotia's Department of Health to access out-of-province care, which has repeatedly been denied. Angela McIver explains.
Jennifer Brady has a condition called lymphedema. It causes fluid buildup and can result in painful swelling, increased risk of blood infection and cellulitis. Brady has experienced all of it, and now she's ready to give up. She recently applied for medical assistance in dying, also known as MAID.
I don't want to live a life where all of my time, it feels like, is spent managing a disease that has essentially taken away everything that I love and enjoy. My life revolves around managing my legs and experiencing pain every day.
Brady satisfies all of the MAID requirements except for one, that the condition is irremediable. In June, the lead clinician overseeing Nova Scotia applications took the unusual step of writing a letter to the province. He wrote, "To request a MAID assessment is not an easy thing for most people. To do so when one is only 46 years old, otherwise healthy, and has 2 children at home is almost unthinkable." He summarized options for care that have been identified. "Your office can make this happen," he wrote to the department. Brady has been in a fight with Nova Scotia's Department of Health for the last 3 years.
My client has been given the runaround and given contradictory information, is unable to know what tests she has to meet, is unable to know what she has to do to get the care that is absolutely medically required for her.
The province has refused to cover the costs of her treatment outside of Nova Scotia, saying she didn't have a Nova Scotia specialist make referrals on her behalf. But it turns out there are no such doctors in the province. In February of 2023, legislation was quietly changed to allow for a minister's discretion for out-of-province care. When Brady asked if the new rules will apply to her case retroactively, she was told no. The department has declined comment, citing the ongoing judicial review. A decision is expected this fall. Meanwhile, Brady has applied for a second round of surgery out of province, essentially starting the process all over again, but she says she's not holding her breath. Angela McIver, CBC News, Halifax.
Well, you might want to hold on to any Tupperware that might be in your kitchen cabinets. Those hard plastic containers could soon be considered collectibles. That is because today the iconic U.S. houseware company has announced that it has filed for bankruptcy. For the past couple of years now, the brand has tried selling its wares through Target stores, but its popularity has kept plummeting. Before that, for nearly 8 decades, people would buy Tupperware through direct sales only and at so-called Tupperware parties. Like Avon, the company focused on getting women into the sales business. Coming up, an interesting model to address homelessness is being discussed in Hamilton, Ontario. After the break, we'll speak with an expert about what the model is and what Manitoba could learn from it. Stay with us. Encampments have been a focus of conversation in our province as of late. Last week, we took a look at legal judgments and government policies surrounding camps where people live. Well, now we want to take you to Hamilton, Ontario, which has rules for encampments and is looking at more regulations. Information Radio's Marcy Marcusa spoke with Kim Ritchie, who is on the board of directors for the Substance Overdose Education Prevention Network in Hamilton, Ontario. Here's her take on how those rules have impacted those who live in encampments.
Hamilton's always kind of had higher levels of poverty. We are known as a steel city here in Ontario because we have such large steel manufacturing plants, and that was like the source of the economy for a very, very long time. But then U.S. Steel bought it out, and a lot of people lost their jobs. It was a lot. And then like the compounding of inflation and COVID and, you know, this recession that they say we're not in, but we're in, has really compounded all these factors, along with the toxic drug supply and the housing crisis and all those pieces as well. And it's just like this centrifuge of like need is kind of horrendous to bear witness to. Just a shocking amount of folks that are experiencing houselessness, that are struggling.
Are they all over Hamilton? Have they grown? What have you noticed in terms of that?
During COVID, they were the biggest at that time, some up to 150, 200 people for one area. And the issue here is very prevalent, more so than most places. And the encampments are like spread out across the city. And we are an interesting city because even though we have like the industrial sector, we also have like the most waterfalls and we have the escarpment, right? So there's lots of places where people can kind of tuck themselves in.
So there are encampment protocols. Can you walk us through a couple of them?
Absolutely. And this is, I do want to give some history around the protocol because I think it's really, really important. So our city did really well in going out and surveying and doing a community needs assessment with everyone, right? So they paid people to get this information. They had people do surveys and they collected a lot of information to build the protocols. However, they didn't talk enough to the people actually living in the encampments. And we have some amazing peer organizations here who did that. So they went out, they talked to people, and we ended up with two protocols, one the city created and one that the people experiencing homelessness created.
I just need to break it down really clearly. So what are the protocols in place?
So there's a number of protocols in place. There's only 5 tents per an encampment site. There's regulations on where they can be. They have to be a certain amount of meters between, like away from city historical sites, schools, sidewalks can't be blocked. Right. But there's a challenge with that because we have encampment friends who are in wheelchairs.
Can you articulate the main difference between the approach that the city's put in place and what you think might have been missed without that lived experience view?
So the lived experience view, you know, wanted some humanity, right? So like outside of like all these regulations, they wanted to create safety. And as a woman who's experienced houselessness, being in a tent has another set of dangers, as you can imagine. And that's to say for most folks. So when the folks want to be together with more than 5 tents in an area, that was a little too tight. 6 or 7 even would have been better than what they were proposing, and not having those conversations of what safety looks like for people experiencing houselessness as well. I know safety is a big concern for the house, and I understand that there are struggles and stigma and stereotypes and sometimes real incidents occur, and I get that. But there's also a lot that's not being reported that happens to the unhoused, you know, tents being ripped up, people being harmed. And this is very real. And nobody reports when they're unhoused because, you know, the relationship between the unhoused and police isn't great.
As I mentioned, that there are calls specifically in Winnipeg around regulation of encampments. What should our city keep in mind if we do decide to go down that route?
They should look at the same thing that the community needs assessments, doing the survey, getting out in communities, and talk to your peer organizations. Get them involved so that they can build relationship between the housed and unhoused, so they can come up and consider all pieces as they're building protocol so that we can have happy and safe communities. And that's really important. But everybody's voice needs to be heard, from the neighbor who's upset to the person who's unhoused feeling unsafe. We need to talk to everybody if we're going to come together and bridge these political divides and have real conversations. We're not going to get anywhere with these stalemates.
All right, time for a check on our Manitoba weather forecast now. Ethan Williams is back.
Well, Riley, of course, we've been seeing this unsettled weather the last few days, and part of the reason is that we have this big troughing in the jet stream kind of higher up in the atmosphere, bringing some, well, at times cooler weather, especially to the west of us, and those very unsettled conditions. And this is going to kind of be a pattern that continues over these next few days. You see the jet stream dropping below Manitoba. I think the rainiest and the most unsettled of the weather is now done, but it doesn't mean necessarily that we aren't going to see a few more showers kind of moving through these next couple of days. And in fact, overnight tonight, in much of southern Manitoba, we are looking for the chance of showers and risk of storms, especially if you're in, Westman and through the Parkland region. Temperatures are going to be warm, though, mid to upper teens with all this cloud cover in place. Temperatures well above normal tonight through northern Manitoba. You should be down in the low single digits this time of year, but we'll be into the mid-teens in some places. As I mentioned a little earlier, that low pressure system that has been impacting southern Manitoba and Saskatchewan past couple of days, that begins moving up northward as we head into tomorrow morning for the north. So we start to see that rain move in by the noon hour. Temperatures probably going to get into the upper teens, again above seasonal, but it will definitely be an unsettled day. For southern Manitoba, really hit and miss here because we start the day with temperatures wide ranging, closer to 10 if you're in the Riding Mountain area, but closer to 20 in the Red River Valley. And then the skies begin to clear a bit as we get to the noon hour. We'll start to see some patches of sun here and there, but that could fire up some thunderstorms. And I think especially as we get into the later afternoon hours, that's when we'll see those kind of pop-up cells. It won't be one big massive system like we saw earlier this week, but a few significant totals of rain may be possible in there. Lola is wishing for days like this, a nice sunny day on the beach. Thanks so much to Sharon for capturing that great pic. Lola will have a little bit of difficulty getting a dry walk in tomorrow, though. I think in Winnipeg, we will see a kind of a sun-cloud mix as we start the day tomorrow, and then by the noon hour, things clouding over. And again, pretty much by the afternoon, that is when we have a good chance of some showers and thunderstorms. Temperatures, though, staying a little bit above seasonal, so it'll be at least a warm day to get the dog out if you get a dry patch in there. And some drier days ahead. I'll have a look at that in your full 7-day forecast, Riley, coming up.
All right, keeping the umbrella handy for the morning, I guess. Thanks, Ethan. Still to come tonight, a popular social media platform has made changes to how young people can use the app. What parents and teens think of the new restrictions when we come back. Social media giant Meta is revamping the way Instagram works for teens, promising a safer experience for young users with enhanced parental controls. CBC's Lisa Shing looks at the changes and why some experts say they fall short.
Lunchtime at this Toronto high school means a chance to scroll.
Are you on Instagram?
Yes, I am. Me personally, I already have my profile set to private.
But now teens on Instagram will see some big changes.
Introducing Instagram teen accounts. Automatic protections for teens.
Now in Canada, the US, UK, and Australia, and later this year in the European Union, anyone under 18 with a new or existing account will by default have their account set to private. Teens can only receive private messages from people they follow. Sensitive content like videos of fighting or those promoting cosmetic procedures will be limited, and anyone under 16 will need a parent's permission to change their settings.
It's concerning that they think it's okay to pick and choose what teens are allowed to see.
I think they're already aware enough to know what they should and shouldn't do online.
So it won't make a difference, these new rules?
No, they won't.
16-year-olds will probably find a way to go around the system.
Meta, which owns Instagram, says anyone signing up will need to prove their age. The changes come as the company faces lawsuits from several U.S. states and some Ontario school boards. Parents like Carrie Holland welcome any extra help.
We have a rule in place that they're not allowed to have public social media. So having the extra backup of, hey guys, it's not me, it's Meta, I'm down to have an extra good cop, bad cop.
While some say it's a positive step, critics are calling out the company for putting the onus on parents to police their children.
Parents with lower rates of media literacy are going to be the ones whose children continue to be the most vulnerable.
Ottawa has introduced a bill aimed at reducing exposure to harmful online content. The U.S. has done the same, a move many say is long overdue in protecting children and holding big companies accountable. Lisa Shing, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, still a little bit on the unsettled side tomorrow with some breezy conditions, but nice sunshine for Friday as temperatures remain for the rest of the work week, at least above seasonal, and then some cooler temperatures for the weekend and a little bit unsettled as well. But then look at that, just in time for the start of next week. We are seeing temperatures back up into the upper teens, even low 20s possible as the sunshine and a little more settled weather pattern starts to build back in, looking like those winds will be dying down a little bit as well. Those overnight lows still quite warm the next couple of days. We should be around 5 degrees or so this time of year, but Riley will be staying closer to 10 degrees. So the gardeners out there probably enjoying a little bit of an extended season.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks, Ethan. Residents at a seniors' care home in Burnaby, BC were treated to a nostalgic outdoor experience Monday night. A classic drive-in theater was recreated just for them. The CBC's Sharia Shetri has our daily lift.
Blanche, do you have the new schedule? Yes, Miss McGee. I just had my hands on.
It's a dose of nostalgia, the sound of movie speakers, the smell of buttery popcorn and hot dogs fill the air as seniors at Dania Long-Term Care Home relived one of their favorite pastimes, a trip to the drive-in.
It'll be our greatest year at Ride-In.
It's been 20 years since resident Roy Stacy last went to an outdoor cinema.
The experience of going out somewhere, go with your girlfriend.
Now enjoying the show with his wife.
But she wasn't my girlfriend then, so don't say anything.
Seniors using wheelchairs, some with cutout cars attached, shared laughs. Others sat on their balconies enjoying the movie with snacks and drinks. The feature film, Grease.
I've never been to a drive-in before, and I've never seen Grease before.
Organizers say it's a way to tap into fond memories that may have faded over time.
They remember when they were younger, as teenagers, going in the car, hiding their buddies in the trunk, or their first date with their girlfriends, and now they're able to share this experience with their families here.
Care home assistant Algin Fructoso donned a different hat for movie night.
It's a great experience, right? We don't do it often, but
with this kind of experience, you know what, it's worth it.
Craig McCulloch says events like these help him strengthen the bond with his 91-year-old father.
They're important. They make all the difference for residents, because I'm here every day to see my dad. And there's nothing worse than doing nothing.
Tanya Holmes says it hopes to make Drive-In Movie a regular event, bringing more moments of connection and nostalgia. Shaurya Chetri, CBC News, Burnaby.
I love that. I love the outfits. I love all the work that went into that. And hey, you know what? Our overnight temperatures, our evening temperatures will still be pretty nice to do that here as well. Thank you for being with us tonight. I'll see you tomorrow.